The reason why we wanted to get you back is that, one of
We didn't really, we just needed someone to come.
one of the things that I've always said that I think you're really good at from the outside looking in is really having like a great vision for your company, strong values, which then leads to good culture. So today, I think I really want to talk about, wilderness as a business. I know we've talked about it before, but maybe just remind us. And then how you then put together the vision that you've got for wilderness and then partnering that with a good culture.
Well, it's funny, like talking about culture is something that I guess I didn't really consciously do for a long time. And it's something that has been a big topic of discussion both within our team and also with other people in the industry at the moment. And I feel like it's something that probably does get overlooked a lot.
Sorry to interrupt, what do you think right now? Because I know you and I, we were talking about culture like at the same time. Do you think there's been a shift somewhere in the industry that's kind of led to that? Because I can't put my finger on anything, but I know you and I have probably come to it at the same time.
I honestly think that there has been a cultural shift in Melbourne, especially.
Yep.
Post-COVID, I think as well, it plays into it, where there is an expectation of people going to work and it not just being a job that you have to get X done by 3:30 maybe, or 4 o'clock in our case, and go home. There needs to be more enjoyment, satisfaction, and I want to use the word here like collaboration and connectivity between workmates, constantly learning.
Going back at the start, you said it's something that you didn't consciously do. Did you previous to this not have culture?
No, and I think Hamish nailed this at the start, where what I did, and it was probably like it was subconscious at that point in time, is set up really rigid frameworks about what the values are of our business.
What are they?
Sustainability is the praxis. It's the central thing that ties everything together. We're pushing, sometimes to our detriment, we're pushing as hard as we can. We're not afraid to try new things. Collaboration, another, say it again, but something that is vital, and that's not just between our team. The collaboration is also vital between all the stakeholders in a project. Yep. We work very closely with usually architects. Most of Wilderness's work comes through architects or designers, and then we work incredibly closely with them, usually on pre-construction for sometimes up to 2 years kind of thing before we even start on site. So that's a huge one for us.
You've said with culture, and in our industry, in the building industry, typically it's a manly environment. It's the tradies, go to the pub after work. That would have been the previous generation. Culture is not just simply getting on the piss with the boys after work. I just want to explain that and have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think what we have tried to do with Wilderness is be the kind of antithesis to high-vis tradie culture that is, often quite gross, I'm not saying it all is, definitely not. And
if you had to put a percentage on it, what would you say?
I'm not in a position.
We're asking that question.
Yeah, not in a position to answer that. But honestly, like we are trying to, engage with like-minded people.
Okay, would you say you're in the minority then?
We are, yeah, for sure. And our team reflects that. We've only advertised 4 roles twice, and we've only done that via Instagram.
Yeah.
And everyone else has just kind of turned up, and I think that what I was trying to kind of get to before is the company values have subsequently attracted the right people and the like-minded people that share similar views on politics, music, culture and in general, that's what's built kind of a really, really enjoyable place to work.
Politics is a
for
tough
everyone
one too, because in a society like today, it is fucking wild. And I feel like you can be level-headed and have a conversation about being quite center on something, but generally a lot of people on site can be fully left or fully right, and they cannot come anywhere in between. So how do you go about that then? Because politics is just like, on a building site, could go so differently depending who you talk to.
There's always those people that you might just, like I'm talking about maybe some different trades or subcontractors that we work with, where we purposely avoid conversations about
and they're entitled to, they're also entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Exactly, which is great. We that's part of diversity. But I think within our team, and some of this might be, luck or chance, but I think it does tie back to those core values of the business that then, attract like-minded people.
Yeah.
We were a fairly young team too. Like everyone is, pretty similar kind of in age. And I think that's, we're all pretty frustrated with some of the decisions that previous generations may have made, and we're always trying to look to better that. And
I want to jump in on the age thing quickly, because it's a really hard conversation, because when you hire, you obviously can't be ageist or anything like that. You can't hold a grudge against anyone. But the reality is, like, you have a team that has a great culture, and I'll be open about this with my team, is like, when we're hiring, like, I want to hire someone that's going to fit with the age group of my people. Because if I have a second or third year apprentice that's quite quiet, that's 20, 21 years old, and all of a sudden I bring a 35 that might be quite dominant, how do you then bring that, when that second or third year is telling the first year what to do, and then they're finally coming out of their shell? Like, I think age is a really important thing around culture, to make sure you have a mixed demographic of people externally, but internally should be around the same.
Yeah. Like I can probably just talk to my own experience there. Like I did my apprenticeship in my early 20s, like classified, like an adult apprentice at that point. And I quickly moved to start managing projects. Yeah. And I was the youngest person in the team that I worked for then. And I was, managing a pretty significant project with tradies that were, double my age. And that was hard. That was really, really hard. Like, and, I got some pretty negative feedback at times, and some hostility there, purely due to age.
And it's also you're young, you don't know what you don't know too. So it just can quickly create this like shitstorm.
Yeah, there was certainly tension. Yeah.
I mean, I still see a little bit of that today. I mean, we've got Rory, who's a bit of a young gun in my business, and I know that when he first started, like, he was a bit conscious about the age thing, because he was telling people that are twice his age what to do. I just want to circle like way back to Wilderness, the name. And I know we talked about this on a previous podcast. So like Wilderness Build Co., like when I first saw it, I just immediately thought, that is a person that never met you before, saw the name, so that is a person that I want to be friends with, or I'm going to respect that business, because it just gave me these connotations of really positive things that I think would be value aligned with me. Can you tell us just a little bit about like where that name came from and where Wilderness was born?
Yes, I remember it vividly. When I was coming up with the idea of starting my own business, which was, to be honest, never really my intention as I was kind of moving through my apprenticeship and starting to manage projects and the like after it, and just being a carpenter. But when I did get to that point, I was like, what's like my dream work that we could be doing? And straight away I went to like building a boardwalk or a public toilet or a wilderness experience in a national park for Parks Victoria. Like that was my dream. And then when it came to the time where my accountant was like, all right, now you have to register a business name, I went back to that, and it was just Wilderness just felt like the perfect fit and somewhere that we still want to move. You know, I was with my business partner last week. We went up to Bellingen and we did this beautiful, you know, walk through the I think it's called Waterfall Way, and there was this amazing kind of, you know, commercial boardwalk on the top of these waterfalls, and I'm like, I still really want to do that. So if anyone from Parks Victoria or any other park representation group in Australia, we're here.
You're the board. You'll just have to go through 40 pieces of paperwork to get on site.
And I'm bringing this up because I know where the name came from, right? And it probably circles back to, and there is a point for me going back there, because I firmly believe that you can't have a good culture unless you have a really crystal clear vision of what your business is for. Now, mine is to build beautiful, high-performing, energy-efficient homes. It's pretty clear what I want to do as a business. And I think you naturally, when you put yourself out to the world, when you have a clear vision, you're attracting those people. Now, I was fortunate enough to meet someone who I've been following on Instagram for a long time now, one of your employees, Patrick. Now, I immediately recognised him.
Do you meet everyone on Instagram?
I've met a lot of people on Instagram, but we happened to meet outside the place we're getting our four-wheel drive service, and your car's there today too, I just found out. We're all there, we're like-minded people driving Toyotas.
So just so
reliable.
You guys are responsible worrying about sustainability driving diesel cars?
Yes, yep, that are going to last forever.
Sorry.
That are going to last forever.
I've got to be a smart ass.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of a high-performance home.
It's a high-performance car.
Yeah, it's a high-performance car. But like guys like Patrick, who I follow on Instagram, you know, I immediately knew that I would like him, and I never met him, right? And then, you know, I look at Patrick and I look at his partner, you know, they've got this cool thing going on, and it just totally feeds into the vibe that you're doing at Wilderness. And I think that right there, meeting Patrick and knowing him through his online presence and knowing that he works for you, and then knowing you and your vision for the business, it all makes sense. So all of that right there, it sort of solidifies why I don't think you can really focus on having a good culture in your business if you don't have a clear vision for your business.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you having a clear vision for your business doing whatever it is that you do, like you've got this idea of, you know, immersing yourself in nature, you're attracting those people who share that vision.
How much time do you spend on your vision? Like, do you still work on it?
Not really, to be honest. Like, I feel like that was incredibly, you know, formative and early things that we did. And it's something that we are coming back to now. And we actually this week, speaking of the team and speaking of Pat, like Pat is the perfect version of what I would want a Wilderness employee to be.
Boy.
Yeah, he's amazing. And you know, he's very, you know, he pushes me really hard. He has hit some incredibly difficult metrics. Like we've done some projects where we've had, you know, we've tried to recycle to 100%.
Wow.
You know, like, and
Borderline impossible. It is impossible.
We found out it was impossible at that period of time. But, you know, Pat is just absolutely determined, and he just went that extra mile, and he does that in everything he does, whether it's, you know, a carpentry task or taking the reins of sustainability on a project. Like, he's pushing me, and
some of the things
that's,
that I've seen him do on his own Instagram account, I think it's his own home, are just beautiful.
And a huge amount of the work that Pat does at his place is like he's finding objects and materials from site and transforming those.
One of his bench tops was broken tiles or broken something.
Jeez. I think it was like a broken kind of marble crazy pape.
Yeah. It looked incredible. Now, I had a really interesting insight into your future recently. Now,
you're doing tarot cards now.
I did the tarot cards.
I wish I had a crystal ball.
We're getting not future. Your past. Really interesting insight into your past. So we happened to cross each other at the Pan Hill pub. Now, I was there with Ben Russell from Goodbye Gas and Breck Energy, and obviously we're mutual friends. And Moons was there, and we just literally happened to be sitting on the next table to you guys, and you had like a party there for someone's birthday.
Yeah.
Now, you were there with all your friends from Steiner. I'm going to go on the record saying that I went to a private school who happened to drive past a Steiner school way back when, right? And I probably was that kid, that fucking asshole who used to look down or criticise or judge or whatever, like the Steiner thing.
It's a classic prefix tool.
Exactly, 100%. I went away from that, looking at how every single one of you interacted and the love that all of you had for each other. I don't want to get too mushy here, but the connections that you guys had that I can only put down to the way that the Steiner environment operates. Because you guys have the same class the whole way through, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And Ben and I were talking about this afterwards, and I was talking to Lucy about it. I've got a few really close friends I've got from school, but it was almost as if like your whole fucking class was there.
Yeah, well, actually, like most of those people on that day were 3 or 4 or 5 years older than myself as well. And I am so lucky, and I really didn't realise how privileged I was going to that school until I was pretty much leaving year 12.
Yeah.
But the best part of that education and that environment, I went to the Melbourne Rudolph Steiner School in Warrenwood.
What's the difference?
It's a bit of a rabbit hole, but Steiner education was created by Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian, say, intellect who has a lot to answer for. He was involved in creating biodynamics. He has some absolutely insane architecture. Our school, for example, the architecture of the school, like each room is painted in specific colours to kind of help promote the learning and growth of children at those specific ages and points in their life. Things like there was no, every single window head and door head is on not square, running at an angle. There's a lot of kind of like subtle philosophy that's put into the education model. It's not really preached at the children. You just kind of rock up and exist in this,
Is the learning
amazing.
still the same?
I did VCE at that school, which a lot of the other Steiner schools do what's called a project for year 12, which a lot of universities really like because
That's what Kaia did, didn't she?
yeah, I think Kaia, who works for you, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure she went to Little Yarra, which is a Steiner school out in Yarra Junction.
Yeah.
And they do a project, and I've got quite a few friends who went to that school, and it's pretty amazing because as a year 12 student, you focus on a specific project that, like for example, like some of my friends, they spend a year recording an album. And they designed the record cover. They engaged with, different teachers about writing the lyrics.
Real life skills.
Yeah, and it translates. So I am incredibly lucky to, the environment that I was in at that school, but it also did, like I'm actually wearing one of our new wilderness t-shirts right now, which on the back I might have to do a 360. No, we've had these for the last kind of 6 months, but there's a saying on the back of it, which was actually a bit of like a saying from one of the school camps that we did in year 9, called Nungata, and it's live lightly, think deeply. And like that just aligns so much with, wilderness as a philosophy, but also where I've come from in the education and the people that I've been kind of surrounded by in my past. So I think that, speaking of, do you go back to the vision? That's something I guess, we revisited recently.
And I brought the Steiner up specifically because I think it's also good to have the history of you as the person who is setting the culture and setting the vision of the business because, and it's, I always find this kind of interesting when you're kind of having like a fly on the wall, because we were literally there amongst your...
Yeah, it was funny. I kind of felt like I was between two.
It was awesome, right? Like I didn't feel, not for a second, that we were excluded from what was happening there. And I bring it up because I think it is important for when you're talking about culture, because now I then have an understanding of like where you've come from and where your brain is at and what you're then trying to produce for your team to operate with.
It's community, I think. And that's something that, has really been instilled in me, not just by my schooling, but also my parents. Like my mum is an, incredibly well-respected person in her community. And, she's always kind of, probably at the detriment of herself been ever present for everyone in the community. My mum has a Steiner shop, actually, in the Dandenong Ranges in Callista, and that's a little like hub for all sorts of the Steiner folk from all around Victoria.
Steiner's a really great example of creating an environment where I guess different thinking people can thrive.
Yeah.
Because and we've talked about this before in universities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've got two sons. One of them is on the autism spectrum. The other one I feel is pretty bloody neurotypical as they come. And I look at Phoenix and I look at Darcy and I'm like, Phoenix would thrive in the Steiner environment. Whereas Darcy probably wouldn't need that structure of a normal schooling environment.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, like, I can talk to that from, even my own family experience. Like, me and my brother 2 years apart, and Jarrah actually used to work for Ben Russell. He's an electrician now. He works for himself now, but Jarrah and I, very, very different personalities, and probably some neurodivergency kind of differences. We're probably both on different ends of the spectrum there, but Jarrah, I think he probably did need a little bit more of that structure, or potentially going and, I've heard him say, maybe leaving school before VCE and going into his trade, which he would have, he's so well suited to that, especially being an electrician. It's very, he's very in this, little kind of structure box, and he plays by the rules the whole way, and where I think I was a little bit more kind of, free and wild and weird. I think, in hindsight, like, I have heard him kind of say, like, maybe he would have, he could have benefited from more kind of
structure,
routine and structure.
Yeah,
but
interesting.
Yeah, the Steiner education is trying for you to find your structure.
Anyway, totally digressing.
So I've got something written down. I've written it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and it's passion. And that's all I hear.
Yeah, totally.
It's literally, and something that's been on my brain for a long time when hiring, and it's actually a complete non-negotiable now when I hire someone, is I want passion, because you can be extremely skilled. If you don't have passion, we can't teach you. If you or you just don't, if you don't care, we can't as a business progress to do better things. How is that in your business? Because it's literally the only thing that I can take out.
Yeah.
It keeps coming into my brain.
I totally agree. I think, like, passion is something that you can't teach. You can't jam passion down someone's throat.
No, you can't. I've tried.
Like,
I have tried.
and what you're passionate about might not be what I'm passionate
exactly
about.
Right.
You probably share something they're quite passionate is building.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, at the end of the day, that's what we are doing. We're either building people's homes or workplaces or whatever that might be, and we're trying to do that in the most sustainable way possible, the lowest impact environmentally, with the highest impact, socially, and
at the same time trying to make money.
Yes, which, as Matt said before, sometimes falls to the bottom of the priority list. But
which I just want to touch on for a second. I actually think that as a builder and as people listening to this, profitability, profit needs to sit at the top. Whatever you're doing, and we live in a capitalist environment, and there is no point in you having all these amazing ideas as a builder and having this great culture and this vision. If you're not there to do those things, what's the point? So you need to make money as a business. So, I mean, and I'm still learning this. I've been in the industry for 20 years now.
Like, how can you, and I think there's a misconception around that business owners make a shitload of money. At times we lose money too, and we have a higher risk, and if shit goes wrong, we're the face. But you also employ people to give them an opportunity, to give them a good income, to look after them.
And if you destroy the business by not making enough funds and actually sending the business backwards, then there's no amazing culture or network or anything for everyone. So
let's all agree on that passion and profit have to coexist and be on the same level as one another.
No, that's the whole idea of business, is to make money. Like, is that its most simple.
Yep. And you can still do, and you know, disagree or agree with me, you can still do amazing things and still make money.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, I've got a lot of amazing friends in the building space who every one of our businesses is completely different.
Yeah.
You know, Brad, you know, you guys have spoken with Brad multiple times. You know, the structure of his business is completely different to both of yours, you know, and I think it's working out. And to be honest, like, my intention was never to have as many employees as I have now. But I wouldn't change that for the world. But
how many
it's also, we're up to 12 now.
Oh.
You can make good money with just one or two people. I think, like, you don't have to have a big.
Bigger is not better all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes that can be a lot worse.
So I've got a thing we talk about: culture, passion. You got a team of 12. Now every generation says this. Then their next generation, they just don't work as hard. And I feel like the culture of young kids these days and not working harder is something that is a huge issue, because I genuinely feel that.
Yeah, I've heard you speak about that before as well. Yeah.
How do you find that? Because there is the exception. I think that we grew up in a generation where we didn't have social media on our phone. We didn't have a phone until probably about 16. These kids have it when they're like 5 now. They're just young kids from 2. They know to swipe. I think there's also the previous generation of us have just wrapped them in cotton wool. And I think that it's detrimental to their working the way they work. But do you have issues with this? Do you see it?
Not really. And I think that that's because of the things that we've been talking around already. You know, the people, like, that can be a major issue. And I totally agree with that.
I'm sheltered from it.
Yeah. And I also think that, like, it's also a huge amount of exposure. And if a kid, like, I remember my youngest brother, Tav, you know, like, if he got, obsessed with certain things, like, I remember one day he came up to me and he said, you know, Kaia, do you have a lighter? And I was like, what do you mean? Why do you need a lighter? And he's like, I saw on YouTube you can, melt these two toys together to create, you know, this different thing. And I was like, what? How do you even know what YouTube is? And two, like...
I was talking about this at footy last night on the T-shirt. He was pretty much saying that, like, the whole YouTube social media thing is, like, to young kids, that they, like, you think that you've got control of them, they're 10 steps ahead of you.
Yeah. And I think, like, what that kind of highlighted to me is, like, also, like, if there's a younger person who is obsessed with building, look how much resource and availability there is now for them to learn building. Exactly right. And so if someone's passionate,
and there's so many
and there's, you know, younger crew who are super passionate, who want to get into building, they've got so much knowledge and things at their fingertips now, which we didn't have. So I think it also can create even more passionate people.
It allows you to find early what you want to do.
And if you're, you know, attracting those people to your business, and, you know, they've seen you on YouTube or whatever it is, like, that can also attract the right people. But I think as a general, you know, kind of thing, like, I have heard what you're talking about, but I personally haven't had much experience with that.
I think it's the issue. It's not when I'm talking about, like, working hard as they don't want to jump on a shovel. Well, some don't, but more so it's like it's the getting from A to B. They don't understand the hard work sometimes it takes, because they've grown up in a digital age where all they see is the phone, like, oh, I'm going to be that. But how do I get to that? That's what I'm talking about.
Do you know what I just feel like? I don't know. Just turning into, like, this whole philosophical question. Like, you know, you see these pictures, like, and this one sticks in my mind, of a picture of a train back in the 50s and then a train now, right?
Thomas the Tank Engine.
Someone's on a train and everyone's reading a newspaper, right? And then the next one's everyone's on their phone. You know, not much has changed.
Still reading the same thing. It's just you get it now instantly.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, I'm not saying that phones aren't an issue, but, like, if every generation that comes through, there's always the new thing, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage diversity without also coming across as virtue signaling?
I said before, we've done, you know, we've only advertised twice for roles, but the time that we, you know, one of those times we explicitly said that we're looking to hire, someone that isn't a white male.
I remember that ad, and I do remember the wording was First Nations and non-binary and women are encouraged to apply.
Yeah.
I remember that. And
Yeah.
I thought that was
Backlash?
No,
Is this
definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I'm definitely not as good
couldn't
at
fuck anyone.
Instagram as you guys. Like, I'm not as, we don't have as much engagement probably as you guys. It's something that I need to work on. Is working on my Instagram.
My little click
So yeah, we don't really. I've never had any negative kind of response to anything like that, but. I remember.
Like-minded people. That's the reason why.
Yeah, and I remember feeling quite conflicted, and I feel conflicted about talking about diversity as three white males, being here right now. So I think it's just opening an opportunity for inclusion, and really just. Also, I'm lucky to have some absolutely incredible women in the team at Wilderness. Yep. We bounce ideas off each other. It's not me making all the calls, and I think that's super important. We've tried to kind of, encourage some pretty open communication with some of the apprentices that we've had that have been women, and I think that comes out of a necessity to really try and see change in our industry.
I actually love what you said before, right? And I've just written down right person here, but it's what you said before, you're actually showing someone an opening in the door. And I actually really like that, because you might put an ad up and saying, I'm looking for an apprentice. Now that, without saying it, is like, I think there is a broad spectrum of the population that women, namely, returning to work mums, would say that and go, oh, that's not for me. But by you saying these people are encouraged to apply, you're actually opening the door for them. Now, I know you really well, and I know that you're always going to hire the right person. So you might get a non-binary, Indigenous, women, 3 males, whatever, and I know out of that pool of
Queer as well, that's a massive one.
Queer, but I know you're going to hire the right person for the job. So you're not just going to hire someone to hit a trick.
No, definitely not.
Is there anything wrong with saying that you said diversity hire?
I kind of do think there's something wrong with that. Like, why are you doing that? Are you doing that for yourself, or are you doing that to try and inject something into your team? I think it needs to come more organically than that. And you're hiring, as Hamish said, you're hiring the right person for the role and for the business and for the rest of your team too.
Yeah.
I have kind of, cringed at that a little bit at times when I've heard, people talking about, diversity hires. And I think that's something that, is quite common in more, larger corporations and things like that. I haven't really had much personal experience with it. But yeah, I don't love that wording.
Either way, it's like if for some people, if you were to diversity hire, but from a right way. Yeah. But then you say we just look at the whole CFMU shit at the moment where they're just they've done it for the complete wrong reasons and taken all the money. So
which do you know what? Like, it's funny because on one hand, giving someone an opportunity where the opportunity probably wouldn't have existed before, and even if that did come as a diversity hire, might have then
opportunity
shown more people that, hey, you know what? It's not just blokes that can swing a hammer. It's fucking everyone that can swing a hammer. So, it's just really, and this is probably why we didn't want to sit here and talk about diversity as 3 white males, because, I guess we've never had, the issues that other people.
But is it now when you hire, is it just anyone you can pick from that? Have you kind of gone not 360, but because originally you've said that, now you just have people when you do hire, or they come to you, it's just, they're comfortable coming to hire. Because I think some of the issue is by saying that, it's giving those people that little bit of I'm safe. I'm safe to apply.
Yeah,
for
that's
this
true.
job.
Yeah, this is a really nice way to spin it back to culture, because we did sit here starting to talk about culture, and I think I kind of want to land on here and maybe finish there as well. And I think people see Wilderness now not as a diversity hire and not as a I guess just ticking a box or virtue signaling. They're coming to work for Wilderness because you've got a great culture.
Yeah. we just did an exercise this week actually, so good timing to be here. But we did a questionnaire with our team. We actually all got in a room and spoke about the questions that we were going to kind of do, and then that questionnaire was done so it's anonymous. And we asked about 6 questions to the team, and one of the first questions is what do you love about working at Wilderness? Pretty much every single person in our team, said the team and the culture. The team and culture that we have now with 12 plus people, that is the best bit about Wilderness.
And I know I said before the profit is really important, but as a business owner, hearing that would...
So you can actually read.
I would sit there and say that for me, that would just be like, you know what, I fucking made it.
I could not be more happy and proud, because that's the other thing, I don't feel like that has been necessarily me creating this. The team creates culture, Do
you know what? Let's not discredit the fact that you've been a massive part of that, though, because yes, your team is adding to that culture, but that you can't take away from the fact that you're the one that started that.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of the conduit in the situation, and to create a really great environment. It comes down to the sum of the parts, all of the rest of the people, and there's not one person in our team that doesn't add to that in such a positive way. And it was just so nice to see those words, coming directly from the horse's mouth.
From the outside looking in, you should be so incredibly proud of what you've done. And I know, and this is coming from,
Are you proud?
I am, but I like myself as a person, I feel like we're only scratching the surface. I feel like there's so much more that we could do. So much more. I think, the things that we have implemented in culture and forming part of our kind of company values, I feel like they should be the bare minimum. This is bare minimum stuff. We've got a long way to go, and we're going to be pushing towards that forever, I think. I think you can always improve. I'm sure you guys have spoken about, and the girls on the podcast the other day spoke about, the condition of the portaloos. One of the guys yesterday, in our meeting said, I think we've been doing really well with the toilets on site, and
I just love that is a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
How long have you been in the industry for? 15, 20 years?
Yeah, 15, and we are making an effort.
Fucking second, you go in there, you hold your breath, right? And then you're out of there. I agree. Now our toilets.
We've actually come up with a plan as a team. So once a week, we're gonna, how they come and hose them out. If we do have to use a portaloo, we'll hose them out. They have to be properly wiped down once a week, so there's not just dust on surfaces and things like that. And, it's something that everyone's agreed to do. And
Team Sanctum, if you are listening here, you are now...
But also, you guys have done the flushing toilets, which that's something else that we're trying to do.
We've only ever done flushing.
That's something that we really want to try and implement more. We're doing that on Pat's project at the moment. It's been a bit of a logistical nightmare to fit it into the inner city site, but we've made it work.
The sewer stack, just bang, drop down.
Yeah, literally.
Just drop down toilet.
We had a temporary toilet that got dropped off today, with the view that once Andy's come in and done his work, then a toilet gets set up out there.
But this is bare basic thing that we should have been nailing for 10 years already. It's so low hanging fruit.
It's so easy too.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bare minimum. Kaia, I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I think that
2 pages of notes is what I've got.
The things that you're doing at Wilderness, you should be incredibly proud of. And I know, like all of us, you probably suffer from imposter syndrome, and that you can always do better and stuff like that. But it's been a real privilege to get to know you and call you a mate now.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me back, guys, and look forward to the next one. And also just want to thank my team. I wouldn't be sitting at this table probably right now if it wasn't for all of them as well. So thank you very much.
The puppet. That's what I say as the builder. We're just the puppet.
I'm the support to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the strings.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.